There's a phrase women say all the time, a question that sounds completely harmless, and yet 93% of men overlook it entirely. And no, I'm not exaggerating. Research from the Han Institute revealed that couples who fail to recognize these subtle verbal signals have an 81% higher chance of emotional disconnection and relationship failure. Today, I'm going to reveal the 2 exact questions a woman asks when she wants deeper intimacy with you. And the second question is going to completely change the way you interpret conversations with women from this moment forward. But before we get there, you need to understand something nobody ever explained to you properly. Look, I'm going to admit something that, as a woman, is a little frustrating to say out loud. But it's true. Most women rarely express directly what we want when it comes to intimacy. Not because we enjoy games, not because we're manipulative, and not because we want to confuse you. There's actually a deep psychological reason behind it. It has to do with thousands of years of evolution, with how the female brain processes vulnerability, and especially with something psychologists refer to as emotional safety protocols. And this is where it becomes fascinating. Women usually don't ask for intimacy with statements. We ask for it through questions. 2 very specific kinds of questions that work almost like emotional codes. And the ironic part? You've probably heard these questions dozens of times, maybe even hundreds, but every time you heard them you likely answered with nothing or, I don't know, or you brushed them off completely, and without realizing it, you closed a door she was quietly opening for you. Today I'm not only going to show you what those 2 questions are, I'm going to explain the psychology behind them, why women ask them, what we're actually evaluating when we do, and most importantly, how you should respond if you truly want emotional and physical connection to deepen. Because the correct response is probably not what you think it is. And the wrong response? It's the one you've been giving automatically for years. In fact, it's probably one of the biggest reasons some of your relationships slowly became cold, without you ever understanding why. But before we get into the questions themselves, you need to understand the full mechanism behind them. Because if I simply hand you the questions without context, you'll make the exact same mistake most people make, memorizing words without understanding the language underneath them. Let me start with something that might genuinely surprise you. Dr. Helen Fisher, biological anthropologist and one of the world's leading researchers on romantic love, discovered something remarkable through functional MRI studies. When a woman feels attraction and wants emotional closeness with someone, the first areas of her brain to activate are not the regions connected to physical desire. They are the language centers, the Broca and Wernicke areas, responsible for speech production and comprehension, light up before almost anything else. That means something extremely important. For many women, intimacy begins with words. Not touch, not eye contact, words. And more specifically, questions. Now, why questions instead of direct statements? This is where it gets really interesting. Evolutionary psychologist Marianne Fisher published research explaining that throughout human history, women developed emotional evaluation mechanisms before allowing intimacy. This isn't modern drama. It's survival psychology. Think about it this way. Thousands of years ago, if a woman became emotionally or physically vulnerable with the wrong man, she risked far more than emotional disappointment. She risked security, stability, survival, even the well-being of her future children. So the female brain evolved filters, and those filters often operate through questions. Questions that sound casual on the surface, but are actually sophisticated emotional compatibility tests underneath. And here's what almost nobody tells men. Those questions are not mainly searching for information, they are searching for reaction. It's not just what you answer. It's how you answer, your tone, your eye contact, how quickly you respond, whether you pause and think or answer mechanically. All of that is being read emotionally. The question itself is the bait. Your emotional response is what she's actually fishing for. Dr. Sue Johnson, creator of emotionally focused therapy, explained this beautifully when she said that the questions women ask when seeking connection always contain another hidden question underneath. And that hidden question is almost always this: am I emotionally safe with you? That is the key to everything you're about to hear. Every question I'm about to reveal is simply a variation of that deeper emotional test. Now let's move to the first question. The first question a woman asks when she wants emotional intimacy is so simple that most men completely dismiss it. And that's exactly why it works as a filter. Because only a man who is emotionally tuned in will recognize what it truly means. The question is, what are you thinking about? Yes, that question, the one you've heard 1,000 times while staring at your phone, the one you usually answer with nothing, the one that seems unimportant or even slightly annoying. In reality, it's one of the strongest intimacy signals in the female emotional playbook. And let me explain why in a way you've probably never considered before. When a woman asks, "What are you thinking about?" she usually does not care whether you're thinking about football scores or your electricity bill, at least not on the deeper level. What she's actually doing is something relationship researcher Dr. John Gottman calls a bid for connection. Gottman studied thousands of couples over several decades and discovered something fascinating. Relationships rarely collapse because of one huge betrayal. Most relationships die slowly through accumulated missed emotional moments. Tiny invitations ignored over and over again. Every time your partner reaches for emotional connection and gets dismissed, another small deposit is made into what Gottman described as an emotional resentment account. And eventually that emotional account overflows, not with explosions, not with screaming, just with silence. One day she wakes up and simply doesn't feel connected anymore. So when she asks, "What are you thinking about?" it's not random curiosity, it's an emotional test. She's checking whether the bridge between your inner world and hers is still open. She's asking whether you are willing to let her into your mind. Because for many women, physical intimacy without emotional openness feels empty, mechanical, lonely, even while lying next to someone. And here's the part that changes everything. A study published in the Journal of Sex Research found that the strongest predictor of female desire wasn't physical attractiveness, frequency of touch, or novelty. It was emotional accessibility, the feeling that her partner was emotionally available and willing to share his inner world. And how is emotional accessibility measured? Exactly. Through responses to questions like, "What are you thinking about?" Let me give you an example. Imagine two situations. In the first one, you're sitting on the couch after dinner. She looks at you softly and asks, "What are you thinking about?" Without looking up from your phone, you answer, "Nothing." To you, nothing happened. But emotionally, a door just closed in her face. Without saying it directly, you communicated that your inner world is not a place where she's welcome. And her brain doesn't register that with anger first. It registers it with sadness. And over time, sadness turns into distance. Now imagine the second scenario. Same couch, same moment. She asks, "What are you thinking about?" This time you put the phone down, look at her, and answer honestly. It doesn't need to be poetic. You could say, "I was thinking how peaceful tonight feels." Or, "My boss said something weird earlier and I've been replaying it in my head." Or even, "I was honestly wondering if penguins have knees." It genuinely doesn't matter. What matters is that you opened the door. You shared your inner world. You allowed vulnerability. And gentlemen, that openness is deeply attractive to the female brain. Not metaphorically, neurologically. When a woman senses emotional openness from a man, her brain releases oxytocin, the same bonding hormone associated with physical affection and closeness, meaning a sincere emotional response can create the same chemical bonding effect as prolonged physical touch. Researcher Brené Brown said something that captures this perfectly. Vulnerability is not weakness. It's the most accurate measure of courage. And when a woman asks, "What are you thinking about?" she is giving you an opportunity to be emotionally courageous. She's quietly saying, "I want to feel close to you, but I need you to meet me halfway." Now, before moving to the second question, there's something important you need to understand. This question does not always mean she wants intimacy. Sometimes she's genuinely just curious. So how do you tell the difference? Watch the context. If the question comes with physical closeness, touching your arm, leaning against you, playing with her hair while maintaining eye contact, then it's probably not casual curiosity. It's an invitation. And if she asks during a calm moment alone together, especially during comfortable silence, the signal becomes even stronger. But that's only the first door. The second question is the one that truly defines the emotional moment. And it's far more subtle. The second question a woman asks when she wants deeper intimacy is some variation of, "What do you like most about me?" It can appear in different forms. "Why are you with me?" "What made you interested in me?" "What makes me different?" "Did you like me more before or now?" All of them are emotionally asking the same thing. And what they seek is not just a compliment. It's something much deeper. Now here's where most men make a fatal mistake. When a man hears, "What do you like most about me?" his instinct is usually to answer physically. Your eyes, your body, your smile. And those answers are not terrible. But if she's asking from a place of emotional openness, a purely physical answer accidentally communicates something dangerous. "I'm attracted to you, but I don't truly see you." Relationship expert Esther Perel explains this beautifully. She says female desire is deeply connected to one feeling most people ignore, the feeling of being truly seen, not looked at, seen. There's a massive difference. Looking notices appearance, seeing notices essence. And when a woman asks what you like most about her, what she's really asking is, "Do you actually see who I am beneath the surface?" A University of Rochester study found that one of the strongest predictors of long-term female relationship satisfaction was something called perceived partner responsiveness. In simple terms, the feeling that her partner emotionally understands and responds to her deeper emotional needs. And that perception is built in moments exactly like this one. So what's the right answer? Let me show you the difference. She asks, "What do you like most about me?" The average answer is, "Everything." And honestly, that's usually one of the worst responses possible, because everything often means nothing. It sounds automatic, lazy, generic. It tells her you haven't actually paid close attention to her uniqueness. Now compare that to something specific. "I love how angry you get when someone is treated unfairly. I love the expression you make when you're deeply focused on reading. I love that even after a horrible day, you still remember to ask how mine was." Do you feel the difference? The first answer ends the moment. The second creates emotional depth. The first is a wall. The second is a doorway. And when a woman feels truly observed like that, when she feels her details, habits, contradictions, and emotional patterns have genuinely been noticed, something powerful happens internally. Her nervous system relaxes. Her body softens. Her eye contact lingers longer, because emotionally, she feels safe. The female brain processes emotional detail extremely deeply. When your response feels generic, women don't just hear the words. We hear what's missing behind them. But when your answer contains emotional memory and specific observation, the brain interprets that as emotional security, and real intimacy only grows where emotional safety exists. Now here's the important connection between both questions. The first question, "What are you thinking about?" opens the emotional channel. The second, "What do you like most about me?" deepens it. Together they form an emotional sequence the female brain often uses subconsciously. First, she checks emotional openness. Then she checks emotional recognition. If both feel safe, intimacy naturally becomes easier. Not forced, not negotiated, just natural emotional progression. But now I need to warn you about something extremely important. Do not turn this into manipulation. Do not memorize fake responses and use them like scripted tricks. The moment your answers stop being authentic, the emotional effect disappears. Women are extremely sensitive to emotional inconsistency, not because of magic intuition, because the brain is biologically wired to detect tone shifts, facial micro-expressions, hesitation, and emotional mismatch between words and body language. Research by Dr. Paul Ekman confirmed that women consistently outperform men in recognizing subtle emotional signals. So if your response sounds polished but emotionally fake, she will feel it immediately. Maybe not consciously. Maybe she won't even know how to explain it. But something inside her will emotionally pull back, and that withdrawal closes the exact door you were trying to open. Instead of memorizing lines, do something far more valuable. Practice genuine observation. Notice the people you care about deeply. Notice what truly makes them laugh, what secretly worries them, what makes them proud, what hurts them emotionally. When you start paying attention that way, the right responses stop being techniques. They become truth. And one more thing, never mock these questions. Never answer with, "Why do you always ask that?" Or, "Here we go again." Because every time you dismiss one of these emotional invitations, you silently teach her that vulnerability with you comes at a cost. Eventually she stops trying. Not dramatically, quietly. And one day you realize she no longer asks anything at all. And that silence is far more dangerous than arguments. So let's summarize everything clearly. The two questions are, what are you thinking about? And what do you like most about me? The first opens emotional connection. The second deepens it. Together they create an emotional sequence women often use to evaluate whether emotional and physical intimacy feels safe with someone. These are not random questions. They are invitations disguised as conversation. And how you respond to them can determine whether a relationship grows stronger or slowly fades into emotional distance. Now, one final thing. If this changed even a small part of how you listen to the woman beside you, then I've done my part. Now do yours. Share this with someone who genuinely needs to hear it. Not for algorithms, not for views, but because somewhere tonight, a man is about to hear one of these two questions. And depending on whether he understands what it truly means, that moment could become either the beginning of something beautiful or the silent beginning of the end. And speaking of understanding women, there's something else you need to know. Sometimes she doesn't ask these questions at all. Sometimes she becomes distant instead. Cold, quiet, hard to read, and most men mistake that for lack of interest. But the reality is far more complicated. In the next video on your screen right now, I'll show you the psychological reason why a woman can act distant while secretly thinking about you constantly. Because sometimes cold behavior is not rejection. Sometimes it's emotional conflict. And if you misunderstand that difference, you may push away the right person without ever realizing it. Click the video now. I'll see you there.